All right, welcome back to Move with Joe. In today's lesson, it's going to be a continuation of some of the movement principles that we were working with the neck, integrating the neck into the rest of the spine. Before we hop into today's lesson, let's just do a quick reference movement of rotating the head to the left and to the right, and just notice how far you get comfortably. And you need to do this a little slower than you might normally move. If you move too quickly, you will skip right past that restrictive part in the neck. So slow it down a little bit. Notice how far you comfortably go, where your end range or first point of restriction is, both directions. And then we'll touch base with this back at the end of the lesson. All right, so let's get started. So let's begin by bringing yourself down onto your stomach, and you're going to prop yourself up on your elbows. Your feet can be pointing away from you, and you're going to slowly begin to take your head up into extension, looking onto the horizon, and then rolling your head down so the top of the head comes towards the floor. And as you make this movement, I want you to begin to notice how much of your spine is involved with this flexing and extending. And so you can begin to imagine, if you had X-ray vision, what would your spine begin to look like? How would each vertebra in your cervical spine begin to move? What areas of the spine may not be moving as easily? And in addition to the cervical spine or the vertebra in your neck, how much of your back, the rest of your back, can you begin to feel involved with this movement? And for a moment, as you begin to make this movement, take your eyes in the opposite direction of your head. So as you bring your head up into extension, you bring your eyes down towards the floor. And as you bring your head down towards the floor, you bring your eyes up towards the ceiling. And for many of you, this might actually be pretty difficult. Even after I've done this many times, it can still be a challenge for the nervous system to move in this unnatural coordination. Okay, great. So give that a rest. You can lay your head down to one side or the other, whatever's more comfortable. And just rest for a moment. And then slowly come on back up onto your elbows. And this time begin to take your head a little to the right and a little to the left, looking at the ease of rotation. And this time, again, take your eyes in the opposite direction. So as you start to take your head to the right, the eyes go to the left. And as you come back with the head to the left, the eyes slowly go to the right. And for many of you, when you first begin to do this, your eyes will move all the way to one direction and then you move your head. So see if you can coordinate the movement so the eyes and the head reach their end range at the very end, and then they come back to the midpoint at the same time, so that you're really focusing on a smooth transition, bringing them into the opposite direction Excellent. Give that a rest. And as you're resting, just take a few deep inhalations. And as you inhale, let's begin to inhale into the abdomen. So you breathe the abdomen into the floor. And then nice long exhale out. And then go ahead and breathe into the low back, breathing the low back up towards the ceiling. And long exhale out. Excellent. Okay. Come on, back up onto your elbows. Let your head flex down towards the floor. So it's almost as if you're bringing the crown of your head, so it's pointing mostly towards the floor. And from here, begin to slide your head back and forth as if it were a pendulum. So you're not rotating, but you're kind of gliding side to side. And then slowly begin to take the head a little farther in both directions. And so you begin to roll the head up a little bit more. So it's coming towards the shoulders. And then eventually you can start to bring the eyes a little higher up onto the horizon. And then you could continue, if it feels comfortable, to continue to go all the way up through a full circle, moving within a range that's comfortable. If you go too far into extension back, you might begin to create some kinking in your neck, so you want to stay within a range that is comfortable and easy. And you can begin to notice as you make this circle, how do you transfer the support through your shoulders, through your elbows? And now begin to notice how much of your spine is involved with the movement. You might start feeling some shifting of weight through your pelvis, and even some differences in how you lengthen through one leg versus the other as you make the movement. Good. And then slowly begin to take the movement in the opposite direction. And you can begin to notice, where is it that you move from your head? What part of the head is in your image? Are you thinking about moving from your chin, from your forehead, from your nose, from your eyes, from the back of your head? So all these different areas that we might think of would change the trajectory of the movement of the head. So for example, if you make the circle from your chin, that is going to create a very different experience than if you make the circle from the top of the crown. So try these different variations of how you begin to make that movement. You could try a few moving from the back of your head. How does that change the trajectory of the movement? Excellent. Let it rest. And then once again, come back up on your elbows. And again, begin to flex and extend through the spine, bringing the eyes up onto the horizon. And notice if there's been any change in terms of how you experience the movement going through not only your neck, but through your thoracic spine and through the lumbar spine. And for me, I already automatically notice that there's a way greater coordination of movement through the entirety of the spine, whereas before when I started, it was more so in the neck. So now I'm starting to, as I extend, find this deep extension from the lumbar spine, the belly begins to press in, pubic bone presses into the ground, and I get this long extension up through the spine. And as I flex, I notice more flexion through the thoracic lumbar spine. Excellent. All right. So you can come up to sitting. And in sitting, just notice the ability to rotate. You could also sit in a chair or come to standing, whatever you prefer. And just notice if there's a change in the quality of the ease of movement from when we started the lesson. And so for me, I have this greater sense of the skeletal support coming all the way up through the spine in that rotation up and through the spine, and having this clear sense of skeletal support for the head to be able to turn on. Whereas if I were maybe a little less organized and was more rounded and had some extension in my head, and from here, there's a much shorter range of mobility that I have because there's not a connection through the center of my spine coordinating this rotation up and through the spine. All right, so hope you enjoyed today's movement video on integrating the neck into the rest of the spine. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Leave a comment. Tell me what you liked, what you learned. Maybe it was something about the coordination of the eyes and the neck. Maybe that was a real challenge for you, and after you practice this several times, it becomes a lot smoother, easier for you to do. It's all these variations of movement that begin to integrate us in our whole system, in our whole body. And so the more practice that we have, the more variation, all of a sudden you'll start to discover things become a little easier. The little nagging things that you had throughout your day slowly start dissolving. And it's not something that necessarily happens in a day. That's why this is a practice. And so stay tuned, continue with our lessons. There'll be more lessons coming out for the back and for the spine. And I look forward to continuing and seeing you next time. All right, stay tuned.